Hi, everyone. Welcome to Meet. My name is Mason, and well, I've always wanted to start a podcast. Meet was born out of a pitch for the newspaper, specifically the Paisano, UTSA's independent student newspaper. By the way, you should totally check it out. There's some really cool things going on over there. With this podcast, I see it living in the realm of conversations and a show that crosses multiple disciplines. I do hope you enjoy it. In this episode, I sat down with San Antonio filmmaker and educator Ramirez. We chatted over Zoom on his filmmaking origins, development of his style through the theater, how he works with his actors, as well as what inspires him about the cinema of the past and the present. I'm still working out the kinks, shaking off some of the dust, so please forgive me if there are any audio issues present. Below will be the link to the story in the Paisano, as well as Alex's socials and website. Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, I kind of want to start a little bit with some just basic rundown of things. Tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of how you got involved with the film scene here in San Antonio.
Yeah, so my name is Alex Ramirez. I was born here in San Antonio. Grew up here on the west side, John Jay High School, Marbach, that whole area. I went to film school down in the Valley, college. That's really kind of where the technical side started, but I'd always wanted to make movies. Even when I was in high school doing other electives, movies were kind of always on my mind. But, it's an industry and a profession that kind of feels thousands of miles away. Because we go to the movies, we see these big budget movies, and that just seemed so far away. But I'd always kind of spoken the language of movies with my mom. My dad would always sneak me into movies, so it just kind of became a natural progression to go do it. And I fell in love with theater when I was in high school and through college, and that transitioned into making movies and writing film and learning how to direct actors. And after college, I came back up here to San Antonio, and I've been here ever since working.
Yeah. This next question kind of goes right in line with that. And some of the research I was doing, I had found a biography on, I think it was filmfreeway.com, and it had noted like this, like you had said, this kind of lifelong love and appreciation for cinema. What were some of the specific films or specific directors that kind of ingrained that appreciation?
Well, I've always kind of been a Scorsese fan. So definitely him. That was a huge one. But I think as I've gotten older, I've gained a real appreciation for directors who really know how to capture feelings. And what I mean by that is a director like Sofia Coppola. My favorite film is Lost in Translation, and there's such a feeling imbued in that of loneliness, but also that you're just this small part of the world, and there's this big, huge, vast world in front of you. Other filmmakers like Hayao Miyazaki, I've recently gotten into, along with a lot of Japanese anime, Shinkai. So those are a few. Other really big ones, like having come from the theater, I loved the work of David Mamet, who's primarily a playwright but has made some great films. And there's a whole slew of great directors. John Carpenter's another one, so it's not really kind of staying in one lane in terms of genre or mode of filmmaking. It's I gravitate towards what I like, even if it's highbrow in some aspects or very lowbrow in others.
Yeah. Kind of slightly off topic a little bit. Do you you mentioned like this kind of idea of feelings, and I immediately thought of Sean Baker, Florida Project. He's got a movie called Red Rocket coming out. He did Tangerine, that kind of that slice of life kind of documentary style kind of thing. I love the Florida Project. I don't know what your views on him are, but yeah, that just immediately kind of jumped out as far as that kind of sense of feeling and stuff. So
Yeah, that was a film that was like among my friends very divisive.
really,
I kind of I think it's good.
hmm
I know I had one friend who kind of like criticized the ending. I think they were like the kids run through Disneyland and something about the technical aspect just like rubbed a friend the wrong way.
yeah,
Filmmaker here in town, but just rubbed the wrong way. Yeah, I mean, I love the way he mixes professional actors and non-actors. There's a lot of really great filmmakers who do that. One that immediately comes to mind is Lynn Ramsey, who
hmm
directed We Need to Talk About Kevin and Ratcatcher. And I recently saw a short film of hers, which was particularly stunning, and I don't fully understand it, but
hmm
you know, a lot of work, you know.
yeah.
Um, like the novels of like Cormac McCarthy. I don't understand great bodies of them, but you know, I still respect them and love them for the language.
Yeah, there's a I think back to Barry Jenkins Criterion Closet video that he did, and he references he references a scene in, I think it's Ratcatcher,
Mhm.
that talking about how she kind of mixes the professional and the non-professional together, and how he kind of utilized that. I believe it was in Medicine for Melancholy. Might have been Moonlight. I could be mistaken there, but yeah, very nice. In another interview, I think it might have been with Stacey, I could be mistaken, but you refer to yourself as a site-specific artist in relation to the importance of San Antonio in your work. How does the culture of San Antonio imbue and inspire you?
I think it's in a way some of the subcultures have really kind of ingrained themselves in what I do. You know, when I was growing up, going to high school, I was in a group of friends who really loved going to St. Mary's Strip, the Friday night punk scene, going to shows down at the 1011. You know, after it changed its name from the Warhol, before it changed its name to Ventura, and before that closed. Um, you know, so getting really involved in not just the punk scene, but like the garage DIY experimental noise rock scene here.
Yeah.
Um, Also, having grown off Marbach, I mean, it's kind of its own culture within the west side of San Antonio.
hmm
And yeah, a lot of the people that I grew up with, the way they talk, the way they comport themselves, their mannerisms, has kind of seeped into the work that I do. Um, you know, and not in a stereotypical way, but in a way that I try to portray as nuanced, um, a way that really kind of dives into the nuance of who these people are sometimes. And I think you know, in me trying to consciously portray that, subconsciously it's come out in other works that, you know, I may do that have nothing to do with the kind of people I grew up with.
hmm
So I think in that way. And also San Antonio is just kind of like a cultural melting pot, and
hmm
it's been nice to experience a lot of different ways of living here and types of peoples.
hmm This is a kind of a question I feel like a lot of filmmakers probably are asked, but and you kind of noted it in the beginning, this sense of like feeling 1,000 miles away.
Mhm.
Um, San Antonio, I'm curious kind of how the city and subsequently the kind of groups and organizations, specifically the film entities, kind of cultivate this environment for filmmakers. Do you think that it's something that is kind of obviously growing and obviously kind of, you know, being nurtured, or do you think that it's maybe a lot more kind of present, and maybe people aren't just necessarily aware of it, or you know, it's just this kind of process that's kind of evolving?
All three combined, you know. I think obviously we're not as huge a market as say an Austin, an Atlanta, a Los Angeles, but there's a lot of great artists here. There's a lot of great film artists here. And I think COVID has definitely slowed that down. But we're doing a lot of great things. I mean, there was the tax incentive fight a couple years ago to bring that would hopefully help bring bigger productions into the city. um Teaching youth right now, I see a lot of young filmmakers emerging, learning the craft, um or learning the craft in various ways, whether that's taking a film class or doing it in a DIY self-made way, and just rummaging through YouTube videos and kind of going out and putting that what they've learned out on the screen. I'm very hopeful that as the years progress, we're going to continue to grow. I think San Antonio is a very just naturally historically and artistically rich city that just kind of needs to be mined.
Yeah, that's very nice. Um, how did you get involved with SACI, and kind of what does your day-to-day look like with that group?
Yeah, so to be quite honest, I didn't even know it existed
Uh,
before I applied to it. I think I just saw a post that they were looking for someone um, in their media departments, and all the qualifications I seemed to fit. So I threw my hat in. I got a couple great recommendations from people, and sent in work. It is a progressive organization, the one that I had not been used to in the terms of operation and what their message was and the people who work there.
mhm.
I've told this to them many times, but it's truly the smartest group of people I've ever been around.
Nice.
And you fight to just catch up sometimes, but that's good. It's the old maxim: if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Mhm.
And uh, just the things that they value, a real fight for the autonomy of their staff, and being that champion of social justice and civic engagement in the community. That's all something that was quite alien to me before I started working there.
Yeah.
um my day to day is different. COVID's affected a lot.
Mhm.
So it really kind of ranges. We do in-person teaching on certain days. We do remote teaching on other days. And we're given a lot of freedom to kind of program and plan for students. And we don't follow like a school curriculum. We make our own curriculum, all the teaching artists. So
Yeah.
it's given us like great freedom to do crazy things,
Mhm.
uh with the children in mind. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fantastic place.
That's awesome. Is it anywhere near in location? Is it close to like the Guadalupe Cultural Arts Center at all? Is it kind of in that
Yeah, we're
general
down the
area?
street from them.
Okay, nice. And it specifically kind of catered, maybe not catered towards, but kind of structured around high school students, correct? Or is it kind of like preparing them for the post early college, put or pre-career kind of stuff?
It does, and we do, but we also cater to middle school students.
Okay.
We particularly target students from low-income households. This is all in our mission statement and our
Yeah.
core values, and listed on our site. But
Mhm.
yeah, we specifically target low-income households.
Nice. Um, in regards to that work, and so we're kind of on this already. In regards to the work with SACI, um, what kind of inspires you about your students and the kind of up and coming artists that they're becoming?
Hmm, that's a good one. I think I see myself in them a bit, and I try to think, what would I have wanted to hear when I was a young artist. Back back in the day, and it wasn't really in vogue to go out and get an arts degree or be a filmmaker. Maybe it is more so now. It wasn't that long ago, but I know when I did it, there wasn't much support to do so. So, I see a young artist, a student that comes to SACE, who's in my studio, and I want to propel their dreams. I want to say things that will guide them in the right way, um, because that's what I would have wanted for myself. And through the work that they do, they're doing things that I couldn't even have imagined when I was in high school. They're working with different mediums that I would not have even thought could make, what a film is.
Yeah.
So just by seeing them do these really complex things uh, to make these works that are full of empathy and full of excellence and artistry, that just propels me to want to help them more.
Very nice. Kind of transitioning a little bit, and where we've noted kind of your background in theater. How has that kind of background you think influenced your filmmaking style, and specifically the kind of process when it comes to rehearsing with actors?
I think it's really influenced my writing style. And there's a certain how should I say, not attitude, but ethic whenever you're working with an actor who is theatrically trained,
Mm-hmm.
that I felt like I always kind of just naturally gelled well with. Um, I grew up reading and loving the works, like I said, of David Mamet, George Bernard Shaw, Shakespeare, all the classics. And I think, what I write now is really kind of capturing those universal themes that you see in a lot of classic works, in finding ways to really um, showcase my appreciation for language. In theater is all dialogue for the most part.
Yep.
And that has really kind of informed my writing and what I write about. I kind of feel like any actors taking time out of their day to come work on a production of mine, the least I can do is write them something good to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that it's definitely informed my writing. You mentioned rehearsing actors. That is my favorite part of the process.
Yeah.
There's this thing in film where, not a lot of rehearsal is given. It's very rare in productions. Um, in theater, it's mostly rehearsal. Well, at least in some productions.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rehearsing, and I love that aspect. I love kind of getting out there and working the scene and figuring out things, and being able to feel like I'm directing a scene in a sense. So all that.
Did you uh did you do like much acting and stuff when you were in high school and college and stuff too, or is it more kind of background behind the scenes stuff, that kind of directing or writing, or did you have to kind of act in a sense?
I did, especially, through high school. Yes, I was writing and directing towards the end in high school. Same in college, acting at the beginning, but towards the end, just pretty much writing and directing. I've never made any I want to be behind the camera. I've made I've made it a really strong point to do so.
Yeah. Nice. On the kind of note of writing, this kind of relation to theater and how that's kind of influenced it as well. Do you feel like you've nailed down a kind of process when it comes to writing, or does it kind of evolve with each new project? And does the kind of process and style of writing change from a screenplay for a film compared to that for a play?
It changes depending on the project. I have a method. Right now I've kind of pared it down to about, I can pump out a screenplay or a play in about 3 months, and that's like knowing what my own process is. I take about a month and a half to do it, to outline. It takes me another month to write a first draft, and then just kind of laboriously going through that, picking out a second draft, and picking out the parts of a second draft that I'm going to use. And then there's an aspect, I was reading, if you've ever read On Writing by Stephen King.
I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
So he will put down a script for about 6 to 9 weeks. I can't remember if it's 6 or 9 weeks, but that's a great tool that I started utilizing in my own writing, because when you're with a piece way too long, you become inured to it. You become too familiar with it. And the idea of putting down a piece or walking away from it for like 2 months, 2, 3 months, that, you come back with a fresh perspective, things become less darling to you and precious. And that's really something that I am starting to implement in my own work. Because, you write a project for 2 months, you want to just finish it, but you get excited to finish it, but it's not what's best for the piece, at least for myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, my process takes about, well, let's just say 2 to 4 months. I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question?
Does that process change between working on a screenplay or working on a script for a play?
Not too much. All dramatic pieces are just outline and making sure each scene is functional. For me, I try to make sure each scene works in two ways, whether that's advancing theme, character, or plot. And that works for both a screenplay and a play. You got to make sure that anything that is not worth, like if you have a scene that doesn't do anything, cut it out or figure out a way to merge it with something else. And that works for both a screenplay and a play. So they're really similar in terms of process. What is really different is that film, as we're told, is a visual medium. And you're not supposed to have dialogue scenes that run 10 pages long, but plays are mostly dialogue for the most part. So that's the big difference.
Nice. Kind of transitioning a little bit to some of the more recent short films. The one that I'm kind of the most familiar with is The Quiet Shore. I saw I think it was the last block for the film festival over the summer that it showed, and it was with there with a group of people from UTSA. And from a kind of filmic perspective, this kind of like pre-production cycle, what were some of the things that inspired the short film in kind of its early stages? Obviously, and I know there was this article that you had ran across in college about ALS, someone with ALS. What were some of the other kind of cinematic influences? I know I found I believe it was the Indiegogo campaign page that had this really nice board of scenes from Moonlight and Bergman's Summer with Monica and some other films. What were some of the things that you were consuming in those kind of early stages that kind of helped inspire the film?
I think, I was really into Cassavetes. So Cassavetes, A Woman Under the Influence, watching that great Gina Rowlands performance was really transformative. And, the way he worked with actors was, he was an actor's director. And in the improv, it's almost like jazz acting. There's riffs, there's really strong chords between actors who are kind of thinking the same thing, the hive mind. And I really love the visceral attitude that a film like that brought. You know, you mentioned Barry Jenkins before, and you just mentioned Moonlight. You know, I was thinking about Moonlight quite a bit, but what I was really thinking about was Barry Jenkins' influence, which for that film, which is Wong Kar-wai and Chungking Express, and thinking about that great photography by Christopher Doyle, and just the kind of punk rock feel of that movie,
Yeah.
and the way he you know, shot scenes and directed scenes. Um, all that kind of lands in the film. And I think, you know, with all that mixed in, I just wanted to kind of create something that I'd never really done before, but I definitely felt. You know, we're back to feelings for filmmakers.
Yeah.
um you know, there filmmakers will make a raw film, but it's not, I'd never really made one. And I wanted to make something that just like didn't wear its heart on its sleeve, but definitely if we're going to see something heavy, it just let's just show it, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I was coming from.
Yeah. It's the film. I kind of remember in conversations. It was a little daunting because I was sitting next to one of my film professors at the time, and so he was really kind of analyzing things. But there was this, you know, I think between all of us, this kind of recurring sense of that it was a very cinematic film, but it was also very intimate. Can you talk a little bit about your kind of relationship with the cinematographer? I think his name is Mason O'Neill Hunsaker.
Mhm.
And subsequently also the on-set relationship between the two leads in the film, kind of how that, you know, how that was.
Yeah, so Mason has a really good eye, um, and really knows how to frame things, and really look for, I mean, he has a naturally great eye for composition. That being said, you know, when it comes to my films, I design the shot list, and I come knowing exactly what I want. So it was great conversations of me putting down, these are the shots, these are what I'd like, and him figuring out really interesting ways to light them that really spoke to the feel that we were going for, especially during the daylight scenes. You know, I love the way natural light looks on film, and us talking about films that are lit naturally beautifully.
Mhm.
But there's also, you know, those really kind of uh, heavy scenes in the hotel or in the motel and on the beach, and you know, those in a sense kind of take on a more dreamlike aesthetic,
Mhm.
and figuring out, you know, how what is the look of this, what are we trying to portray with color.
Mhm.
So you know, we really bonded over that film and our love for other films, whether that be by like, yeah, like John Carpenter, or just loving genre films,
Yeah.
like which is funny because I mean we're doing this really heavy drama, and we're over here talking about like you know, a classic genre horror film, Evil Speak from the 80s, which is
Mhm.
like, you know, really like grindhousey kind of film.
Yeah.
Um, so we were able to bond that way. He gave a lot to that production, so you
Yeah.
know, I thank him for that. Working with the two leads was, I mean, it was intense,
Mhm.
and I knew it was going to be intense, mainly because when we went out to do research, and I partnered with the ALS Association of Texas. They sent us a consultant on the film who was an ALS patient himself. He lives on west of San Antonio, and me and the two leads, Joe Bartley and Joseph Renee, drove out to his home, met him, and you know, this 3 to 4 hour long conversation ensued, and that was life changing. So like by the time we left, I remember us, you know, going to lunch right afterwards, all three of us, and just kind of like taking in what this project meant,
Mhm.
and what meeting someone who has this disease, ALS, what it could potentially mean for them. We knew the gravitas of everything afterward. And we continued to bond through rehearsals. It was really extensive acting process, particularly for Joe Bartley, who one of the best actors I've ever worked with.
Yeah.
Did a lot of work, a lot of body work in terms of what happens to someone when they're diagnosed with ALS, and how it starts to, in a sense, deteriorate their body. How does that look physically?
Mhm.
And also for Joseph, I mean, the emotional ramifications of seeing the one that you love slowly lose their identity, in a sense.
Yeah.
And having feelings of anger, of mixed in with this awful feeling of I just want to get out of this in any sense that I can. Although I do love this person, it's hard to even be in this, and I want to be selfish at times, but I can't.
Yeah.
So I mean, examining all of that, it just made us bond a lot closer. And I mean, it was good. They loved the script, so that certainly helped too.
Yes. There's a question I had that I kind of didn't on my little Google Doc sheet, kind of referencing and kind of relating the scene where I'm trying to think, because I mean the last time I saw the film was over the summer, so I'm trying to kind of think back to it. But it's I believe it's the context of it is they're in the hotel room, and I believe that essentially that that he's kind of having this kind of sexual encounter with another woman, and that she's also like in the bed, but she's kind of like with him in this this sense. But then it kind of goes to the scene on the beach, and to kind of relate back to Moonlight a little bit. Barry Jenkins talks about that kind of this like transference that happens between those two characters, that they're kind of waiting in the waters, and for the context of the film, he refers to the fact that this is the waters that brought his ancestors over, and there's this kind of sense of this freeing like weightlessness that happens when you're kind of floating in the ocean. And there's a shot where she's just kind of floating in the ocean, basically. That kind of escape to that kind of weightlessness. What in that kind of moment do you think for I believe the character's name is Elena, is that correct? What does that kind of, you think, kind of represent for her in that moment, you think?
I think, and a lot of people have different interpretations of the film, particularly the ending.
Sure.
I think in that moment, there's a feeling of just kind of wanting to be swallowed up by something greater than themselves.
Mm-hmm.
We think of nature as this, how should I say, this auditorium of healing, this place that we go to like feel closer to, our peace. I think there's a great sense of that in the water, but there's also quite a bit of mystery in the water. If we're thinking about places like the Mariana Trench, that goes down thousands or not thousands, but many miles.
Yeah.
And I think just wanting to forget things for a bit, and just to be swallowed up by something that is all encompassing. That's I think that's what she feels, and I think that's what I was feeling even when I was writing the scene and conceptualizing the scene. I think that ending really kind of draws back to what I was trying to get at in terms of form for the film. I love the idea of memory plays and plays that don't live in a specific reality but move in and out of a reality.
Oh yeah.
And I think that's what I was really trying to get at. You know, I really love Tony Kushner's Angels in America, which
Mhm.
has scenes of reality, but also has scenes that are like fever dreams, and
Yeah.
they move in and out of each other, and they happen. You know, I mean, when there's scene transitions, you see the stagehands bringing out the set you know, in various productions.
Mhm.
And I love that idea of just kind of like being able to move from something that is real to something that is unreal.
Very nice. Um, in some of my Instagram deep diving, I found I forget when it's from, but it was a post of a book. I believe it was called, I might butcher the pronunciation, apologies, but it was called, I think, Nyoko, The Bird Has Flown. And it was a collection of works, films, plays, I think possibly even like short stories and stuff that um, were kind of written down in the moment. Do you kind of see yourself referring or returning back to those and adapting those into actual projects, or those kind of um, just kind of pieces of history that are kind of captured on the page, so to speak?
You know, that actual project itself, I'm decided to rework because a lot of those works came out of this very specific time, COVID. So I kind of wanted to rework it in order to, you know, really capture what I was feeling at the time. A lot of those works, you know, actually, the most recent film that I'm about to finish up, it's called Life in Technicolor. The screenplay for that is in there as we filmed it. Um, because about a year ago we tried to make that film, but we couldn't because of COVID.
Mm.
So you know, I wanted to immortalize it in any way I could. So I decided to put the screenplay, you know, in this collection that I was starting to form. But also I wasn't quite done with that story. So out of the screenplay, in a way, I kind of did a novelization of it and made a short story out of it, which also landed in the collection,
Mhm.
which is quite different than what we filmed. And you know, I think a lot of those projects, there's a lot of plays in there,
Mhm.
which, you know, have different lives than screenplays more often than not. Yeah, I can see a lot of that work that's going to land in that collection coming to life in various ways,
Mhm.
just by the nature of what they are.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, even if it's put down on the page, I see a lot of that having a second life.
Well, you noted A Life in Technicolor, and that is one of the next questions. It seems to kind of sit in the realm of nostalgia, the kind of this concept of this cinephile that can kind of bend space and time to kind of live in the you know, the works of the past. In one of your short films I found on YouTube, I think it was called Shadow Dance. The description notes that it was kind of inspired by the works of Robert Bresson and Paul Schrader. How did the kind of the works of those, like those past filmmakers, those the kind of this pantheon of great directors and artists and writers, how do they kind of inspire you now?
I mean, I've grew up always loving filmmakers. By the way, this is a very impressive interview. These are fantastic questions.
I appreciate that.
But yeah, I always grew up loving filmmakers. They were always my heroes, and um, well, some kids were out playing video games, reading comic books. You know, I was doing the same things, but I was really kind of like diving into films that, you know, I had no business watching when I was like 12 or
Mhm.
from
Everyone has
yeah,
those, yeah.
from the ages of like 12 to 18 and beyond that.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, when I was young, I was already kind of watching the films of like, I don't know, Sam Raimi, but mixed in with like I don't know, a Douglas Sirk film, and
Mhm.
Billy Wilder. And you know, it's lucky I'm very lucky, especially with my mother, that I could talk these films and older films, you know, which she'd grown up watching. I could talk them and kind of like learn a part of the language of cinema. So, uh, I had great support in that aspect. But yeah, I mean, I I've seen quite a bit. Old films on the independent circuit. IFC was going strong when I was a teenager, like back when they were showing like really crazy things,
Yeah.
which I really love and wish they'd kind of get back to. If that's even still a channel, I'm not sure. I hope it is. But yeah.
I believe it is, but yes. Yeah, very nice. There is another film that found on your website, the Young Lust. I don't know where that is kind of at in your where you're at with your other films, but obviously it's this kind of horror film. The description on the website notes the this kind of recurring theme of John Carpenter's work. You noted, I believe, Jack Clayton's The Innocents, which is another film that I do really enjoy, and then kind of South American and kind of Mexican folklore and mythology. Is that film done? Is it kind of still kind of in production, or is it kind of maybe like on the back burner a little bit?
So that film, we actually had to shelve completely because of COVID.
Gotcha.
Because of the scale of it. We shot about half that film, and to come back and do it and to keep the same continuity was far too expensive. So the silver lining in that project is I put out the announcement to shelve it, paid the entire cast and crew, which is honestly something that really doesn't happen often when a project is shelved, but everyone put in their due diligence, and you have to be an ethical filmmaker if you plan to work in this town. So the silver lining in that project is that what money we had left over actually went into A Life in Technicolor. And we're in the post for that film. So everything has kind of gone into the resources for that film. And I was able to meet some really amazing, not meet, but work with some amazing people that I'd always wanted to work with after the production of Young Lust, which was really difficult. We shot that December of 2019, going into 2020. And I mean, we had night shoots. We shot when this freeze occurred in Castroville, which was, I mean, just kind of like really difficult weather conditions. So it was nice to like be able to take what we had from that and put it into this film and shoot inside and have this really empathetic cast and crew, and where everyone kind of became a family.
I just had a question that was brewing there, and I'm losing it now. The cycle. I'm kind of curious. This isn't on my page, but I'm kind of curious about the cycle of when it comes to when you're getting ready to release a film and show it. Do you take the kind of the YouTube route and kind of release a project, or do you send it to like Vimeo and the kind of like Film Freeway, Film Shortages, those kinds of things? Or is it kind of a different process when it comes to like you're going to submit to festivals? Like can you not upload it on one place and you have to upload it on another place to be eligible for this to a festival? How does that process work?
Yeah, it's tricky. I think it kind of depends on each project. I can tell you the submitting process, particularly for The Quiet Shore, was very interesting. When you make a film, you kind of have to think like a festival programmer when you're making it, in terms of content, in terms of audience, in terms of um, length of the project. A festival programmer, if they're trying to program, let's say, a drama block of shorts, well, they have an hour and a half. They're going to try to put as many films in that as possible.
Yeah.
If you have a 30-minute film, it better be the best goddamn film on the planet, or else it ain't going in.
Yeah.
Because why put in this good 30-minute film, or why put in a great 30-minute film when you can put in, 7 really good shorts? It's
Sure.
more content.
Yeah.
And I can understand that. A Quiet Shore was like 28 minutes long. It's a really long project.
Yeah.
So in terms of submitting, you try to pick out a strategy of you develop a strategy and pick certain film festivals that you want to submit to.
Yeah.
For a long time, the Quiet Shore wasn't really getting into stuff, and the main problem being the length. So what I did was pivot, and instead of going straight to the festivals that I wanted to, I decided to try the film shortage routes.
Mm-hmm.
And I did, and it started to get some notice from that. And I, from that, subsequently, Film Freeway has a lot of really great ways of advertising a film, and really kind of dived into that. And, we were able to get into a lot of film festivals. I mean, like 30 to 40 film festivals. Of course, there's a lot of there's many that you don't get into.
Yeah.
And that's just the luck of the draw, but when you have a long film, there's a lot of different routes that you can take. There was also the Shorts TV route, which is getting your film distributed by Shorts TV.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other platforms that are just looking for content, and that's kind of where that film lives right now.
Mm-hmm.
In their programming, and it'll be there for the next 3 years. We're able to strike a licensing deal with them, which is great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. In terms of other films, you're asking, like, can it be on one platform or another? It doesn't really matter the platform. I mean, there's some festivals that still have this archaic rule of like, oh, we want to be the premiere for your film, so you can't submit to other fests. That's a ridiculous rule. Filmmakers are artists who are just trying to get their name out there. So you just kind of have to be able to dance around those rules and figure out what your strategy is.
As a kind of ending question, this a lot of these questions are kind of serving my interest in film specifically, but also kind of wanting to relate it to a bigger audience. Like, obviously I'm going to be networking the hell out of this to the film club and the film classes and on campus and those circles and stuff. But what is kind of some parting advice that you would offer to the budding kind of the kind of college student filmmaker, somebody who's maybe not majoring in film or going to a film school, like the kind of advice that you would give to somebody like that?
There's a lot of power in other mediums. Do not fall into this trap of, I'm only going to watch film, because in your own work you start to essentially recreate moments that are already not exactly reality. There's a great video, I think by what is it, every frame painting, that talks about these actions that keep occurring in films that aren't really what people do. That's very true, and I see that in so much work, and it just feels disingenuous. It doesn't feel real to life. That goes in with just sticking to one medium, film. You need to do a lot of things. There's a lot of power in just going to the theater on a Friday night, or going to a symphony, or walking through the park and seeing street artists. You should be like a sponge, try to take all that up. Read a lot. Don't my main source of entertainment is not even film anymore. I read quite a bit.
Yeah.
And taking the art of other cultures. I've kind of gone on this I guess tangent of really getting into Japanese cinema and Japanese culture.
Yeah.
And the way they tell stories is so much different than the way Western filmmakers tell their stories, and it's so refreshing, and it's so, I would much rather, and this might be blasphemy for some people who just love his work. I mean, I love his work too, Steven Spielberg, but I'd much rather go see a Yasujiro Ozu film than a Spielberg film at this point,
I agree.
because the method of storytelling is just so different.
Yes.
Sidney Lumet loved living in New York and making films there because he could go to the MoMA, or he could go to Radio City Music Hall, or he could go see an off-Broadway play or a Broadway play or an off-Broadway play.
Yeah.
So get sucked into other mediums, let them inspire you, because just watching David Fincher films, Quentin Tarantino films, and Christopher Nolan films, although it is enjoyable, and you probably know the plot, and those can become comfort films, just watching that, you're just going to regurgitate something that is lesser.
Yeah. That's a very, very nice way to, we'll for sure be getting a lot of that down on the page. That's very nice. I appreciate the comment though. Thank you. Like I said in the beginning, I'm very glad that we were able to schedule this and be able to have a chat.
Yeah, this was great.
Thanks for watching. Click our logo to subscribe, or click the videos for more from the Paisano. Leave a comment letting us know your thoughts and what you'd like to see us cover next.